All right, so the Indiana Fever made the obvious move, which I guess is probably a good thing, right? When everybody's looking for a Sophie Cunningham replacement and the same name continues to come up over and over again, it's probably a good bet that said name is the best player available on the market. That's not to oversell it, but it is to say it was the pretty plain and clear direction the Fever were going to take, needing a guard slash wing to replace Cunningham, especially given how glaring a position of need that is now.
Okay, this is wild. When the Indiana Fever announced Sophie Cunningham was out, it felt like the entire season just took another gut punch. Remember, she was brought in specifically for her toughness, her defense, and that all-important enforcer role that Caitlin Clark so desperately needed in her second year.
So it looked like the Indiana Fever has signed another hardship player, but this young lady, we was calling for her to be signed months ago.
But here's where it gets crazy. With Sophie sidelined, the Fever had to scramble, and boom, in comes Aerial Powers on a hardship contract. Just hearing that phrase, hardship contract, tells you how absolutely wild this season has been. It's like the Fever aren't even a pro team anymore. They sound like they're running a Craigslist ad, now hiring temporary basketball players, must bring your own sneakers.
Now, and Aerial Powers steps in for the Indiana Fever in that role. Powers, has had a nice career across the WNBA. At one point was a bona fide scorer. When you go back to her time with the Mystics and the Lynx in the 2019 through 2021 kind of era, 2022, she averaged 14.4 points per game for the Lynx in 2022.
Let's start with the basics.
So this Aerial Powers choice has Fever fans absolutely buzzing, and here's why. For months, her name has been floating around Fever Twitter. Even when Cunningham was healthy, people were already saying Indiana desperately needed another veteran wing who could actually score. Powers was on that short list, and now, finally, she's wearing Fever colors. The reaction? Totally split. Some fans see it as a blessing, a godsend even. Others, they're calling it a total desperation move. But one thing nobody is arguing about is that this whole situation just got way more entertaining.
Below what I would like from a player, but honestly, Aerial Powers is a player that gets after it. She understands the game. She's athletic. And she adds a little size to the backcourt for the Indiana Fever. So I'm not necessarily mad at the signing at all.
Stat-wise,
okay, but let's be super clear. Aerial Powers isn't some random, unproven G League pickup. This woman is a certified baller. She's been in the league since 2016, drafted 5th overall by the Dallas Wings, and quickly made a name for herself as a seriously tough scorer. Someone who could rack up points in a hurry, even if her consistency sometimes left fans a little frustrated. She even won a WNBA championship with Washington in 2019. And trust me, you can't just brush past that. Championship experience is exactly what Indiana desperately needs in a locker room that's currently overflowing with injuries and pure confusion. You simply cannot teach what it feels like to win at the absolute highest level, and guess what? Powers has lived it. That right there, that matters.
Aerial Powers is the biggest name that's available. She is the biggest name that's available. She's somebody that has had good years in her career. Like in 2022, she averaged 14.5 points per game. In the Wubble, she averaged 16.3 in the game she played. She averaged 13.4 for the Lynx. And then she averaged 5 points a game for the Lynx in 2023. Averaged 8 points a game for the Atlanta Dream, but nobody wants her. What is the issue with Aerial Powers in general? It seems to be an attitude issue. It seems to be a willingness to win. It's never been a talent issue with Aerial Powers. She's a serious player.
And get this, Powers has had some seriously solid stretches in her career. Back in 2022 with Minnesota, she averaged over 14 points a game. So she's not just some roster filler. She can legitimately score the basketball. But then, as always, came the flip side. The inconsistency, the lingering questions about her fit with teams, and of course, that dreaded attitude label that seems to follow certain players around.
It's going to go one of two ways. Either she's hungry and she wants to get back to where she was and playing with the Indiana Fever under that microscope, even without Caitlin Clark playing, as we've seen with Ari McDonald.
And that, folks, is exactly why she wasn't already on a roster this season. Teams were hesitant, probably thinking she might be more trouble than she was worth. But let's be real. Indiana isn't exactly in a position to be picky right now. They desperately need bodies. They desperately need production. And Aerial Powers can absolutely give them both. Now, here's where the sarcasm really kicks in. Sophie Cunningham was supposed to be Caitlin Clark's protector. That bulldog who wouldn't let opponents push her around without paying a price. How long did that last? About 5 minutes before Sophie herself went down, becoming just the latest in a long, long line of Fever players to hit the injury list. Seriously, it's like Indiana is running a buy one get one free deal on injuries. You lose one guard, and a forward joins them on the sideline just for fun. So, the front office looks around, sees Aerial Powers sitting at home, and just says, why not? This isn't some carefully planned roster move. This is pure, unadulterated survival mode. Oh, the fans, of course, had an absolute field day. Some celebrating that they'd been calling for Aerial Powers for months, while others just rolled their eyes, wondering if signing her is simply rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. But the real entertainment honestly came from Powers herself, because she's super active online, chatting with fans, posting reactions, and making it crystal clear that she actually wanted to be here. And that, my friends, truly matters in Indiana, where Fever fans have felt ignored for years. When a player openly embraces the fan base, people rally behind her, and with Caitlin Clark pulling the national spotlight, anyone who joins the Fever now is automatically stepping into a circus. So the big question is whether Powers can just handle it or actually thrive in it. Let's be real about Indiana's current situation. Caitlin Clark is in year 2, no longer the shiny rookie who could do no wrong. Expectations are higher, the spotlight is harsher, and opponents are more physical than ever, so she absolutely needs help. Aaliyah Boston is still a franchise cornerstone, but she's carrying a ridiculously heavy load, and the rest of the roster, injuries everywhere. Odyssey Sims down, Cunningham down, Show Heavy hanging on. It's basically a patchwork quilt of players, and now Aerial Powers has to sew herself into that mix. And it's either going to look brilliant or completely unravel, and honestly, that's what makes this move so incredibly fascinating. Think about the skill set comparison. Sophie Cunningham brought defense, hustle and grit, never giving you 20 points a night, but annoying the opposing star, taking a charge, and hitting an open three. Powers, on the other hand, is the opposite. She's a pure scorer who can put her head down, get to the rim, and light it up from deep when she's feeling it. But defense, that's where the questions really start. Because Indiana has been terrible defensively all season, and adding a player known more for offense doesn't exactly fix that. But maybe, just maybe, the plan is to simply outscore opponents, and hope Caitlin Clark gets some space to breathe. Not exactly a foolproof plan, but hey, it's better than nothing. The funniest part is how quickly fans shifted their tone. Just weeks ago, people were saying Indiana needed more veteran scoring to take pressure off Clark. But now that they got Powers, some of those same fans are whining about her attitude. Seriously, which is it? Do you want a scorer or a saint? Because last time I checked, saints don't win championships. Competitors do, and Powers, whatever you think of her, overseas footage of her recent games shows she can still hoop, dropping 20+ points, solid rebounding, hitting threes like it's nothing. But the question is whether she can translate that to the WNBA pace after being out, because these 7-day contracts don't give you much room for error. She's basically got a week to prove she deserves a longer deal. That's insane pressure, but it's also a massive opportunity. If she comes in, scores in double figures, and helps Indiana steal a win or two, she's sticking. If not, she's gone. Simple as that. Now let's add the Caitlin Clark factor. Every move the Fever make is now judged through the lens of how it affects Clark. Fans don't just want to know if Powers can score. They want to know if she can help protect Caitlin, ease the pressure, and maybe even keep the Fever in playoff contention. Clark's second year was supposed to be about growth, but instead it's been about survival. She's missed games, taken hits, and watched her teammates drop like flies. So adding Powers is less about long-term planning and more about giving Clark someone else who can actually put the ball in the hoop. If it works, Clark benefits. If it fails, well, at least Indiana tried. The media circus isn't going away either. ESPN, Twitter, TikTok, they're all waiting to see how Aerial Powers fits into the Clark era. And let's not forget, Powers has a bit of personality herself. She's not going to shy away from attention. She engages with fans, she claps back online, and she's got her own brand. That could be a blessing or a curse. On one hand, she takes some spotlight off Clark. On the other, if she clashes with teammates or doesn't perform, the headlines will write themselves. Indiana doesn't need more drama, but with this team, drama is basically the brand. Here's where things get spicy. Aerial Powers isn't just any signing, she represents both opportunity and risk. Her career has been a mix of highs that prove she belongs in the league, and lows that make coaches hesitate, and that duality is exactly why this signing has fans debating so fiercely. Is she the missing spark, or just a short-term pat? The answer depends on which version of Aerial Powers actually shows up in Indiana. Let's talk about her best years first. In 2020, during the Wubble, she was one of the top scorers in the league, averaging over 16 points per game, and looking like a budding star. That wasn't a fluke either. Her game was polished. She could create off the dribble, knock down shots from deep, and muscle her way into the lane, and a 5'11" guard with that kind of offensive package is a problem for defense. That's why Minnesota and Washington kept giving her opportunities. When she's healthy and motivated, she's a difference maker, and that's why fans are buzzing now. They've seen her at her peak, and they know what she's truly capable of. But then comes the flip side. Injuries slowed her down, consistency wavered, and coaches and GMs started whispering about attitude, chemistry, and whether she could be counted on night in, night. Suddenly, the player who once looked like a rising star was on the outside looking in, and that's how you end up on a 7-day hardship contract in 2020. The talent is undeniable, but the baggage is real, and that's what makes this such a fascinating experiment for Indiana. For the Fever, it's a gamble worth taking. Worst case scenario, she's here for a week, scores a few buckets, and disappears. Best case scenario, she rediscovers that 2020 form and gives Indiana a legit scoring threat to take pressure off Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. In a season where every game feels like a test of survival, rolling the dice on Powers makes total sense. Fans know it, the front office knows it, and Powers herself knows it. This is her shot to remind the league she's not done yet. The fan reaction has been comedy gold. Fever Twitter split into 3 camps. Camp 1, this is the best move we've made all year. Camp 2, she's going to tank the locker room. Camp 3, who cares? At least it's not another random guard nobody's heard of. That's where Indiana fans are right now. Burned out, cynical, but still holding on to hope that one move can change everything. The irony is, they might all be right at the same time. Powers could help on the court and still stir things off it. That's the gamble. Then there's the Caitlin Clark effect again. Everything revolves around her, and rightly so. She's not a rookie anymore. This is year 2, the excuses are gone, the expectations are higher, and the spotlight is brighter. She needs help, and Aerial Powers could be that help. But Clark also needs stability, not more chaos. If Powers comes in guns blazing, scoring in double figures, she becomes the perfect sidekick. If she clashes with teammates or struggles defensively, she becomes another headache in a season already filled with them. And Clark, whether she likes it or not, will get dragged into that storyline. That's just how this works. Let's not forget the playoff picture. Indiana is clawing just to stay in contention, and every single game matters. Adding a player who can give you instant offense might be the difference between sneaking into the postseason or packing it up early. The Fever don't have time for a long adjustment period. They need production now, and that urgency might actually help Powers. She knows the stakes. She knows she doesn't have time to coast. This is her shot, and if she wants another contract in 2020, media reaction has been just as entertaining. Some outlets frame this as Indiana's desperate move to salvage the season, while others see it as a smart signing of the best available talent. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Desperate? Absolutely. Smart? Also, yeah. That's what happens when your roster is decimated and your franchise player is carrying the weight of the entire league on her shoulders. You grab talent wherever you can find it and hope it clicks. It's messy, but it's reality. Now about the fit. On the court, Powers can play both guard and small forward, and that versatility helps. She can run with Clark in the backcourt, or slide to the wing and let Clark handle the ball. She gives Indiana another shooter, another driver, another option when defenses collapse on Boston inside or blitz Clark outside. If she buys into her role, she could be exactly what Indiana needs. A veteran scorer who eases the pressure. But, and this is the big but, she has to buy in. If she starts forcing shots or sulking when minutes aren't what she expects, it's trouble. The Fever simply can't afford more drama. The timing is also interesting. Indiana is banged up, morale has been shaky, and fans are restless. Signing Aerial Powers sends a message. The Fever aren't giving up. They're still trying, they're still swinging, and that matters, even if the results aren't perfect. Fans want to see effort. They want to see the front office doing something, and this signing gives them that. Whether it works long-term is another story. Looking ahead, if Powers performs, she could earn a longer deal, maybe not with Indiana, but with another team watching. That's the beauty of hardship contracts. They're auditions. Every possession she plays is being watched by scouts, GMs, and coaches around the league. So if she shines, she's back in the league full-time. If not, it might be the end of the road. That pressure can either break a player or bring out their best, and we're about to find out which side Aerial Powers lands on. So where does that leave Fever fans? Somewhere between cautious optimism and resigned sarcasm. They've seen this movie before. The team signs a name, hopes rise, and then reality hits. But there's also the sense that this time could be different. Powers isn't some random rookie. She's proven, she's experienced, she's capable. If she clicks, this could be one of those rare hardship signings that actually makes a difference, and in a season where everything feels like it's hanging by a thread, that possibility is enough to get people talking. And that's the real win here. Relevant. With Caitlin Clark out, the Fever risk fading from the spotlight, but signing Powers keeps the conversation alive. Fans are debating. Media is covering, and suddenly Indiana is back in the headline. That matters for a franchise trying to rebuild both its roster and its reputation. Because even if Powers doesn't light the world on fire, the fact that people are paying attention is incredibly valuable. Sophie Cunningham out, Aerial Powers in, and Indiana Fever fans reacting like it's the biggest plot twist of the season. Will Powers save the team or just add another chapter to the chaos? Time will definitely tell.